The space colony was broken and silent. Once it had been filled with lights, music, and markets where traders from many worlds came together. Now only shadows moved through the ruins and hunger followed every step. She walked slowly through the cold corridor, her small frame trembling. Her clothes were torn, her skin pale, her eyes dim from days without food. Her people had been driven out, her family gone, and she was left with nothing. Every day she searched for scraps. But the colony offered little more than metal dust and broken machines. That night she reached the outer docks. Old ships rested there, some still alive with faint lights, others abandoned like corpses. Her stomach twisted in pain, and she leaned against a wall feeling the weight of her own weakness. She had no more strength to pretend she could last another day. Her alien heart beat faster when she saw movement. A figure stood near one of the ships working with tools. It was not one of her kind, it was a human. She had seen humans before, but never this close in the galaxy. Humans were known to be strange, sometimes kind, sometimes cruel, always unpredictable. She pressed her lips together, fear and desperation fighting inside her mind. This was her last chance, her only chance if she did not act. She would die in the shadows. Forgotten and nameless, the human turned slightly, and she saw his face under the dull dock lights. He looked tired, his clothes plain, his hands rough with work. He carried no weapons. Only a bag of supplies food, she thought. Her throat burning with need. Her steps were weak as she walked closer. Her voice cracked, trembling like her body. "Human," she whispered, "please. I beg you." He turned sharply, surprised to see her. His eyes scanned her thin form, her trembling arms, her hollow cheeks. She lowered her gaze, shame pressing down on her chest. No words came at first, only silence filled with her shame and his watchful stare. Finally, with her last strength, she spoke. "Give me food just for tonight," she said, her voice breaking. "I will give myself to you. Only for one night if it means I can live another day." The human froze, his face changing from confusion to shock. Her words echoed in the empty docks like a wound torn open. For a moment he thought he had heard wrong, but her desperate eyes told the truth. She was ready to trade her dignity, her body, her soul, only to survive. His jaw tightened, anger rising in his chest. Not at her, but at the cruel galaxy that had pushed her to this edge. He dropped the tools in his hand and stepped closer, his eyes burning with something she could not understand. She flinched, thinking he would strike her, or perhaps take her bargain without another word. Her whole body shook, waiting for the moment she would lose everything, but the strike never came. Instead, the human took a deep breath, pulled open his bag, and brought out a small pack of food. He placed it gently in her hands, his voice firm but quiet. "You don't need to do that," he said. "Eat. Stay alive." Her hand shook as she stared at the pack of food. Tears filled her eyes, and for the first time in weeks, she felt real weight in her hands, not metal scraps, not empty hope, but food. Still, her mind could not believe it. Every bargain in this cruel galaxy came with a price, and she did not know what his was. Her lips trembled. "Why," she whispered, "why would you give this to me without—" Without taking, the human looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Because you are not a bargain," he said, his tone sharp but steady. "You are not something to be traded." She stared at him in silence, her chest heavy with confusion. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not since her family was taken. The shadows of the ruined colony seemed to close in, but his words cut through them like a fragile light. Her heart raced, not with hunger now, but with fear and wonder mixed together. Who was this human? And why did he choose kindness where the rest of the galaxy only chose cruelty? The food in her hands was warm, real, but the questions burned hotter than her hunger. Could she trust him? Or was this another trap waiting to close on her when her guard fell? The night stretched long around them. In the silence of the broken colony, two strangers stood, one desperate alien girl, and one human who refused her bargain. Her fate had turned in a single moment, but she could not see yet if it was salvation, or a different kind of danger. The alien girl sat on the cold dock floor, clutching the food pack in her trembling hands. Her heart beat fast as if it might break free from her chest. She could not believe the human had given her food without asking anything in return. In her memory, survival was always a trade, always a bargain, always a cost, yet here she was, holding a gift she had not earned. The human did not walk away. He stood quietly watching her eat, his arms crossed, his eyes serious. The silence between them felt heavy, filled with unspoken questions. She wanted to run, but her body was too weak. Her stomach too hungry. She tore the pack open and ate quickly, tears slipping down her face as the taste filled her mouth. The human crouched down, his voice calm but firm. "You will freeze if you stay here tonight," he said, pointing toward the dim lights of his small ship. "You can rest inside. Safer than out here." Her heart leapt in fear. Every instinct told her not to trust him. The galaxy had taught her that safety was only a lie spoken before betrayal. She shook her head, whispering, "No traps." "I cannot," he sighed, rubbing his forehead as if her suspicion wounded him. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, "but I won't force you either." Then he turned and walked toward the ship, leaving the door open with soft light spilling out. The choice was hers. For several minutes she sat frozen. Her hands shook not from hunger anymore, but from the war inside her mind. If she stayed outside, the cold would kill her. If she went in, the human might take from her what she had once offered. She whispered to herself, "One night, just one night," and slowly stood. Her feet dragged across the dock as she approached the open door. The ship smelled of oil, metal, and faint warmth. She stepped inside carefully, her wide eyes searching every corner as if danger might leap out. The human was busy near a small console, adjusting controls. He did not even look at her, which made her feel strange, almost invisible. He pointed toward a small cabin. "There's a bed," he said, his voice steady. "You should rest. You look like you'll collapse any second." She looked at him, then at the door, then back at him again. Her voice cracked. Why are you doing this?" He finally turned his gaze on her, his eyes tired but sincere. "Because no one deserves to suffer like you," he answered simply. Her throat closed as if the words were too heavy to swallow. No one had spoken to her like that before, not since her world was taken. She walked slowly to the small cabin and sat on the edge of the bed. The blanket was rough but warmer than the frozen docks. She pulled it close to her chest, staring at the wall with wide, uncertain eyes. The human stayed outside the cabin, giving her space. She could hear him moving about the ship, working on repairs, his tools clicking softly. The sounds were steady, almost comforting. Still, her thoughts twisted with fear. What if this was all a trick? What if he waited for her to sleep before taking what he wanted? She did not close her eyes. Hours passed, and the hum of the ship's systems filled the silence. Finally, she heard footsteps. Her body froze as the human appeared at the door. Carrying a small cup of warm liquid, he held it out. "Drink this. It will help you rest." She hesitated, staring at the steam rising from the cup. Her hands shook as she accepted it, sniffing carefully. The smell was strange but soothing. She took a cautious sip, expecting poison, but warmth spread through her body instead. He leaned against the doorframe, his voice softer now. "What is your name?" She stared into the cup, whispering, "Lyra." The name tasted foreign on her tongue. As if she had almost forgotten who she was, he nodded. "I'm Daniel." No titles, no threats, just a name. For a moment it felt almost human, almost normal. But normal was dangerous, she reminded herself. Normal could be broken in an instant. Still, her eyes grew heavy as the warmth spread. She fought to stay awake, suspicion burning in her mind. But sleep came anyway, dragging her into its arms. Her last thought was that if he betrayed her, at least she would not feel it. When morning came, she woke suddenly. Her body tensed, expecting pain, expecting loss. But she was still wrapped in the blanket, untouched, safe. The cup was empty on the small table beside her. From the front of the ship, she could hear Daniel moving again. Humming quietly to himself, her chest tightened. Confusion swirling inside her. Why had he not taken what he could? Why had he given when she had nothing to return? She stood slowly, her legs weak but steadier than before. She walked to the door and looked at him. The human noticed her and gave a small nod, as if nothing unusual had happened. For the first time in years, she felt a question she could not push away. Could this human truly be trusted, or was this only the beginning of another kind of test? The answer was hidden in the silence of the ship, waiting for her to uncover. Lyra woke to the soft hum of the ship. The light inside was dim, tinted by the glow of nearby stars. She sat up slowly, the blanket still wrapped around her shoulders. Her stomach no longer ached with hunger, but her heart was restless. Daniel the human was at the control panel. His eyes fixed on the navigation screen, he looked calm, too calm, as if nothing unusual had happened the night before. Lyra's mind could not understand it. Why had he helped her? Why had he protected her without asking anything? In the galaxy she knew, nothing was free. Not food, not safety, not even kindness. And yet here she was alive because of him. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "You could have left me." Daniel turned his head slightly, his eyes meeting hers. "But I didn't," he said simply. That answer gave her no peace, only more questions. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. She wanted to thank him, but fear weighed down her tongue. Because she knew a truth she had not shared. A secret that burned inside her chest like a hidden flame. A secret that could kill them both if discovered. Daniel stood and stretched, his movements casual. "I'll check the engines," he said. Picking up his tools, "You should eat again. Regain your strength." Lyra nodded faintly, but her eyes followed him, watching every step. Not because she distrusted him, but because she feared her secret might be revealed. As she walked toward the small table, she caught her reflection in the metal wall. Her eyes, normally soft and pale, flickered with a faint glow for only a moment. She gasped and covered them quickly with her hand. The glow had been happening more often, each time she was afraid or weak. It was the sign of her bloodline, the mark of her people, and it was the reason mercenaries hunted her across the stars. Daniel returned, wiping his hands on a cloth. He noticed her trembling, her hand covering her face. "You're shaking again," he said. His brow furrowed. "You're still sick?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I'm fine." But her voice cracked. Betraying her fear, he studied her silently, his sharp human eyes not missing the smallest details. Then he spoke gently. "You're hiding something." The words froze her body. Her heart pounded as if trying to escape her chest. She whispered, "Please." "Don't ask." Daniel's face tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Lyra, whatever it is, I need to know if it puts us in danger." Her lips trembled, her whole body stiff with fear. For days, for months, she had carried the secret alone. Now it pressed against her throat. Demanding release, she lowered her hand, and for a moment her eyes glowed faintly again. Daniel's eyes widened, not in fear, but in shock. "What was that?" he asked, his voice quiet but steady. Her chest rose and fell quickly, her breath uneven. Finally, she spoke the words she had sworn never to speak aloud. "I am the last," she whispered. "The last daughter of the House of Vera." Daniel frowned. The name clearly unknown to him. But Lyra continued, her voice shaking. "My family was hunted, killed, our house destroyed. Because of what we carry." She touched her glowing eyes, her hand trembling. "This power. It marks us as rulers and as targets." Daniel leaned back slowly, trying to absorb her words. "So, you're being hunted," he said. Her tears fell as she nodded. "The mercenaries want me, not for who I am, but for what I carry. If they find me, they will kill anyone near me. Even you." The silence that followed was heavy. She expected him to curse her, to throw her off his ship instead. Daniel rubbed his face with his hand and muttered, "No wonder you were desperate. The whole galaxy is against you." Lyra stared at him, confused. "You are not afraid?" she asked. Her voice fragile. He gave a small smile. Though his eyes were sharp, "I've been afraid before, but fear doesn't decide what I do." Then his tone hardened. "You should have told me sooner, Lyra. If mercenaries are after you, they'll come after this ship, too." Her body shivered at his words. The thought of bringing danger to the only person who had shown her kindness filled her with guilt. "I should leave," she whispered, "before they find us," but Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, you won't survive alone. If they come, we'll face them together." Her heart twisted at his words. No one had ever chosen to stand beside her. Her people had fallen, her family had been scattered, but here was a human she barely knew, offering to fight for her life. The tears she held back finally spilled down her cheeks. She turned away, pressing her forehead against the cold wall. Her secret was no longer hers alone, but now the question loomed larger than ever. Would his choice to protect her save them both or destroy them, far beyond the ship? In the silence of the stars, other ships moved, mercenary hunters scanning, searching, following the faint trace of her bloodline. Their shadows stretched closer with each passing moment, and though Lyra could not see them yet, her heart knew danger was already on its way. The silence of space was never truly silent. Daniel's ship hummed with engines and flickering lights, but outside the window stretched a darkness so deep it seemed endless. Lyra sat near the small table, her hands clenched together, her glowing eyes dimmed now. but fear still lived in them. Daniel checked the monitors again and again, his jaw tight, his focus sharp. He had heard her story. He had seen her secret, and he knew trouble would soon follow. He was right, far beyond. Hidden in the shadows of drifting asteroids, a mercenary vessel slid closer. Its sharp hull was painted black, its weapons armed. Its scanners locked on faint energy signals. Inside, hunters whispered to each other, trading promises of payment for the capture of the last heir of Vera. Their voices were eager, cruel, filled with greed. Back on Daniel's ship, Lyra felt it before the sensors did. A chill ran down her spine, her heart tightening as if warning her. "They are close," she whispered, her eyes glowing faintly again. Daniel turned sharply, checking the radar, and cursed under his breath. Small blips appeared on the screen, shadows closing in. He rushed to the control panel, his fingers moving fast across the switches. "Strap in," he said firmly. "They've found us." Lyra's body froze, her breathing quick and shallow. She had known this moment would come, but not so soon, not when she had only just begun to feel safe. The ship shuddered as Daniel forced the engines to full power. The stars stretched into lines as they sped through the asteroid field. Behind them, red beams of energy cut across the darkness. Missing the hull by inches, the mercenaries were firing, their weapons burning through the void like fire through paper. Lyra gripped the seat tightly, her voice trembling. "They won't stop. They'll chase us until they have me." Daniel's jaw clenched, his hands steady on the controls. "Then we won't make it easy for them," he said, steering sharply to avoid crashing into a spinning asteroid. The mercenary ship pushed closer, faster, its cannons glowing. Explosions lit the darkness as fragments of rock shattered. Shaking Daniel's vessel, the alarm screamed inside the cabin, warning of damage still. Daniel didn't stop, weaving through the deadly maze with skill. But Lyra saw something he could not. Her glowing eyes flickered brighter as she stared into the void. "There's another ship waiting ahead," she whispered. Her voice shook with fear, but her vision was clear. "They've trapped us," Daniel cursed again, slamming his fist against the panel. 2 ships now, one behind and one in front. The hunters were closing the cage. For the first time, his calm eyes showed doubt. Lyra reached for his arm, her touch desperate. "Leave me," she begged. "If you give me to them, they'll let you live." But Daniel snapped his head toward her, his voice burning with anger. "Stop saying that," he growled. "I'm not trading your life for mine. Not now, not ever." Her chest tightened. Tears filling her eyes, she wanted to argue, to tell him he was foolish. But the fire in his voice silenced her for a brief moment. She saw not just a human traitor, but something stronger, someone who would fight even when logic said run. The mercenary ships fired again, this time striking the edge of Daniel's vessel. Sparks burst inside the cabin, smoke rising from the control panel. Daniel coughed, pulling wires, trying to hold the system together. "We can't outrun them," he admitted, his tone grim. "We'll have to fight." Lyra's blood ran cold. "Fight? Against 2 armed ships? In a vessel barely holding together?" It was madness, but there was no other choice. Her glowing eyes brightened, her chest burning with the strange power of her bloodline. She had spent so long hiding it, fearing it. But now, with Daniel's life at risk, she could no longer hold back. She rose from her seat, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "Then I will fight too," she said. Daniel turned to her, surprise in his eyes. "You? How?" Daniel stared, caught between awe and disbelief. "What is that?" "The gift of my house," she whispered, "and the curse that follows me." The ship shook again as another blast struck the hull, but her light held steady. She closed her eyes, focusing, channeling energy into the systems. The broken alarms faded, the power core steadied, the engines roared with new strength. Daniel's eyes widened as the ship responded. "You're feeding it. With yourself." Lyra opened her eyes, glowing brighter than before. "Yes, but it won't last long. Use it now, Daniel. Before they destroy us." With her power flowing through the ship, Daniel pulled the vessel into a sharp dive. The engines screamed with sudden speed, the hull glowing from the strain. The mercenaries fired again, but the human ship slipped between the beams. Cutting through the trap, Daniel spun the ship around an asteroid, forcing the hunters to collide with their own crossfire. One mercenary vessel exploded in a burst of flame, lighting the void like a false sun. The second ship pulled back, damaged but still alive. Its captain cursed, vowing to hunt them again. For now they had escaped, but only just inside. Daniel turned to Lyra, his chest heaving. She collapsed back into the seat, her glow fading, her body weak. Her voice was soft but certain. They will not stop. They will come again. Daniel looked at her. His jaw set, his eyes burning with resolve. Then we'll be ready, he said. The danger had only begun, but so had their bond. And in the silence after the battle, the galaxy felt smaller. 2 hunted souls against a universe of enemies. The ship drifted in the silence of space. Its hull scarred, its engines breathing unevenly. Smoke still lingered in the cabin from the battle. The smell of burnt wires mixing with the faint metallic air. Daniel worked with his hands, repairing what he could, sweat running down his forehead. Lyra sat nearby, her body weak, her glow faded. But her eyes never leaving him, her heart felt heavy, guilt pressing down with every breath. You almost died because of me, she whispered. Her voice trembling, Daniel didn't look up. His hands steady as he twisted wires back into place. And yet here we are alive, he replied, his tone calm, almost sharp. She shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. No, it is not the same. You risked everything. And I gave you nothing but danger. Daniel stopped, turning to face her, his gaze steady. Stop saying that, he said firmly. Your life is not nothing. His words cut through her like light breaking a shadow. But still the fear in her heart whispered louder. You don't understand, she said. Everyone I've known has died because of me. If you stay with me, they will come again, and this time you will not survive. The cabin grew silent. The hum of the ship the only sound between them. Daniel sat across from her, his hands folded, his eyes serious. I've lost people too, he said softly. And I've learned something. Running doesn't save you, fear doesn't save you. Trust does. His words felt strange to her, almost impossible. Trust? It was something she had buried long ago. When betrayal had stolen her family, her voice cracked as she asked, How can you trust me when I hide secrets? When my presence paints a target on your back? Daniel leaned forward, his tone steady. Because I see who you are. Not just what hunts you. She blinked, confused, her lips parting slightly as if the words didn't make sense. You see, me? She whispered. Yes, he answered. The girl who begged for food but offered herself instead. The girl who should have been broken but still stands. That is who I see. Her chest tightened, tears spilling from her eyes for the first time. Someone looked past her curse, past her bloodline, past the glowing mark in her eyes. She covered her face with her hands, trembling. The fear that had chained her for so long cracked, just a little under the weight of his words. Daniel placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Not forceful, not demanding. If you want to leave, I won't stop you, he said, his voice quiet. But if you stay, we fight together, not as bargains, not as strangers, but as allies. Lyra lowered her hand slowly. Her eyes red with tears, she searched his face, looking for the trick, the lie, the hidden demand. But all she saw was truth, simple and steady. Her lips trembled. I don't know how to trust anymore, she admitted. Daniel gave a faint smile, one corner of his mouth lifting. Then start small, he said. Trust me for 1 more hour, 1 more day. And we'll see what happens. Her heart shook. But for the first time, the idea didn't seem impossible. She nodded faintly, her voice soft. 1 more day. The air between them shifted, lighter somehow. The walls of fear that had stood between them began to weaken. But outside, danger still waited, watching. Hours passed as Daniel worked on the ship. Lyra forced herself to rest, her body still weak from using her power. When she woke again, the lights were steadier, the engines humming smoother. Daniel sat nearby, dozing in his chair. A tool still in his hand, she stared at him quietly, her chest warm in a way she did not understand. This human, so stubborn, so foolish, had chosen her life over his safety. The thought scared her more than the hunters. Suddenly the console beeped sharply. Waking Daniel, he rushed to the screen, his expression darkening. They're scanning again, he muttered. Lyra's breath caught, fear crashing back like a wave. They've found us? Not yet, Daniel said, but they're close. Too close. He looked at her, his eyes steady even in the rising tension. You said they'll never stop, so we need a plan. Something they won't expect. Her hands clenched tightly, her glowing eyes flickering faintly. She swallowed hard, whispering, There is one thing. But it is dangerous. Daniel leaned closer, listening. What is it? Her voice shook as she spoke. There is a station nearby, abandoned long ago, but filled with old weapons, traps and shadows. If we lure them there, we can fight on ground where I can use my power more freely. But if we fail, neither of us will leave alive. Daniel stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then that's where we'll go, he said. Lyra's eyes widened. You agree just like that? He gave a small shrug. If it gives us a chance, I'll take it. Her heart pounded. Torn between fear and something new, hope, she whispered. You are not like others, Daniel gave her a tired smile. I'll take that as a compliment. As the ship turned toward the abandoned station, Lyra felt her fear pressing hard against her chest. But Daniel's words lingered inside her, steady and unshaken trust, even if only for one more day. And in that moment, she chose it. For the first time in years, she let herself believe. Not in bargains, not in survival, but in something greater. Something fragile but powerful, trust beyond fear. The abandoned station drifted in orbit around a dead planet. Its metal walls were cracked, its lights dark, its silence broken only by the faint hum of broken machinery. It was a graveyard of the past, a place long forgotten by traders and travelers. But for Daniel and Lyra, it would become their battlefield. Daniel's ship approached slowly, its engines whispering in the void. Inside, he checked his weapons, an old blaster, a few grenades, tools he had modified for defense. Lyra sat across from him, her eyes glowing faintly, her hands trembling but steadying with each breath. She knew this place well, not from memory but from stories her family had told her, a place where old wars ended and new ones could begin. They'll follow us here, Daniel said, his voice low. They think we're weak, running, desperate. But this is where we turn it around. Lyra nodded, though her chest was tight with fear. I will fight beside you, she whispered. No matter the cost, the radar blinked. Sharp and bright, the mercenary ship had arrived. Dark and sharp like a predator. More followed behind, 3 in total, their engines glowing red. They surrounded the station like wolves circling prey. Their voices crackled across the comm, cruel and mocking. Hand over the girl, human, and maybe we'll let you crawl away alive. Daniel smirked coldly. Switching the comm off. They don't know us, he muttered. Lyra stood at his side, her glow stronger now. Her fear was still there, but something new burned above it. Resolve. The ship landed inside the broken hangar of the station. Dust rose, lights flickered faintly, the air filled with the scent of rust and decay. Daniel grabbed his pack of weapons and nodded to Lyra. Stay close, watch my back, she nodded, her eyes shining like twin stars. The mercenaries stormed in moments later, heavy boots striking the floor, blasters in hand. Their helmets hid their faces, but their movements were sharp. Confident, cruel, they spread through the hangar, their scanners sweeping, their voices echoing. She's here, I can feel it, bring her to me alive, their leader growled. Daniel moved first, striking from the shadows. A grenade rolled across the floor, exploding with a burst of light and smoke. The mercenaries staggered, shouting. Lyra lifted her hands. Her glow flaring bright, beams of energy burst forth, striking the floor, twisting metal, forcing their enemies back. Her power shook the station walls, her breath heavy as she poured herself into it. The hunters fired, their red blasts cutting through the smoke. Daniel ducked, firing his blaster with precise shots. Striking one mercenary down, then another. He moved with sharp focus, protecting Lyra at every step. But the hunters were many, and they pressed harder. The leader stepped forward, taller, stronger. His armor marked with scars, he fired at Daniel. The shot grazing his shoulder. Burning cloth and skin, Daniel cried out. Falling to one knee, Daniel! Lyra screamed, her glow blazing. Her heart filled with terror but also rage. Her hands shook as she unleashed a storm of energy. The walls groaned. Sparks rained from broken lights. The floor trembled. The mercenaries stumbled, shielding their faces from her burning light. Daniel gritted his teeth, forcing himself back to his feet. I'm fine, he muttered, though blood ran down his arm. He stood beside Lyra, firing again, covering her as she unleashed her power. Together they pushed forward, step by step, their bond unbroken. The leader roared, charging at them through the storm. His blade ignited, glowing red. Daniel blocked with his blaster, the force nearly knocking him back. The fight was close now, brutal, desperate. Steel clashed, sparks flew. Shouts echoed in the hangar. Lyra's power flared one last time. Her eyes blazing brighter than ever, she screamed, releasing a wave of light that filled the station. The mercenaries were thrown back, their weapons flying, their bodies crashing into the broken walls. The leader staggered, his blade shattering under the force. He fell to his knees. staring up at her glowing figure with fear in his eyes. "This is not your fight," he gasped. But Lyra's voice thundered, steady and strong. "It is mine." And it ends here, with one final burst. Her light consumed the hangar. When it faded, the mercenaries lay broken and defeated. Their weapons silent, the leader crawled back. Then collapsed, his body still. The station grew quiet again. Only the sound of Daniel's heavy breathing and Lyra's trembling sighs. Her glow dimmed, her body weak, and she nearly collapsed. Daniel caught her in his arms, holding her tightly. "You did it," he whispered, his voice rough. "No," she said faintly. "We did it." He smiled, despite the pain in his shoulder. Despite the blood on his arm, for the first time, he saw her not as a girl running from death, but as a warrior, a survivor, a partner. Together, they had faced the storm and lived. But deep inside, they both knew this was not the end. More hunters would come. More battles would wait. Yet in that moment, in the broken hangar filled with smoke and silence, they had won, and for the first time in a long time, victory belonged not to fear, but to trust. The station was quiet again. The smoke from the battle hung in the air, slowly fading into the cold silence of space. The mercenaries lay defeated, their weapons scattered across the broken floor. Daniel and Lyra stood in the middle of the hangar, both shaking, both exhausted, but still alive. Daniel leaned against a broken wall, pressing a hand against his burned shoulder. Blood stained his clothes, but his eyes stayed steady as he watched Lyra. She knelt on the floor, her glowing eyes dim now, her strength almost gone. Her chest rose and fell quickly, but there was a faint smile on her lips. "You should rest," Daniel said quietly, his voice rough from pain. Lyra shook her head slowly, looking up at him. "You risked everything for me again," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why, Daniel? Why do you keep choosing me?" Daniel looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he gave a small smile, tired but honest. "Because you're worth it," he said simply. Her heart twisted at his words and tears filled her eyes. No one had ever said that to her before. Not once in her life since her family had been taken. She crawled closer to him, her small hands pressing against his injured shoulder. "You should not bleed for me," she whispered, her voice breaking, but Daniel caught her wrist gently, shaking his head. "I don't regret it," he said. Not a single moment. For a while they sat together in silence, listening to the faint hum of the broken station. Lyra leaned against him, her body weak but her heart full. She remembered the night on the docks when she had offered herself for one night. She remembered the shame, the hunger, the fear. And now, here she was, still alive, not because of a bargain, but because a human had given her more than she had ever asked for. Finally, she spoke again, her voice soft but firm. "When I came to you, I only wanted to survive one more day. I thought survival was enough, but now I see it is not." Daniel turned his head, his eyes meeting hers. "What do you see now?" he asked. Her glowing eyes shimmered faintly, not with fear this time, but with hope. "I see a future," she whispered. "Not one night, not one day, but forever." The words hung between them, fragile but powerful. Daniel's chest tightened, and for a moment he had no answer. He had been alone for so long, drifting from place to place, trading scraps, surviving as best he could. And now, in the middle of a ruined station, with blood on his arm and smoke in the air, he felt something he had never expected. He felt he belonged. He reached out, gently brushing a strand of her hair from her face. "Then let's build it," he said quietly. Her breath caught, her heart racing. "Build? Forever?" she whispered. He nodded, his eyes steady, his voice sure. Not survival, not bargains, not fear, but something real. Her tears fell again, but this time they were not from sorrow. They were from the weight lifting off her chest. The chains of fear breaking for the first time. She believed she could be more than a hunted heir, more than a girl running from death. She could be herself, she could be free, together. They gathered what they could from the station. Supplies, parts, anything useful for the journey ahead. The mercenary ships drifted silently outside, broken and powerless, a warning to those who might come next. Daniel repaired his ship as best he could while Lyra helped, her hands still trembling but determined. Every small act felt different now, not survival, but the start of something greater. When the ship was ready, they stood at the hangar doors one last time. Lyra turned to look at the broken station, the battlefield where everything had changed. "Here I found more than food, more than safety," she whispered. Daniel glanced at her, his voice quiet. "And I found more than a passenger," She smiled faintly, her glowing eyes warm. "You gave me forever," she said. Daniel shook his head softly. "No, we gave it to each other." The doors closed behind them, and the ship lifted into the silence of space. The stars stretched out before them, endless, dangerous, but filled with possibility. Lyra sat beside Daniel, her hand brushing his lightly. He didn't pull away, and neither did she. The galaxy would not stop hunting them. The shadows would still follow. Battles would still come, but now, they would not face them alone. Together they had chosen something stronger than fear. Stronger than survival, they had chosen forever. And as their ship disappeared into the starlight, the story of a desperate bargain turned into something else entirely. Not a tale of one night, but a tale of hope, trust, and love that defied the cruel galaxy around them.